Great introduction. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for being here. This is my first reading, so the printer ran out a little bit, so if I stumble at first, it's not nerves, I swear. It's hard to read, the words that I wrote myself. So this is an excerpt from When the Skies Fall, which is the second book in the Grey War saga. Set 200 years in the future, humanity controls 4 systems. We've explored, we have all the same grudges that we do now, and we've just made first contact. 2 alien empires show up in the space between the Earth and the Moon, dragging their centuries-old war with them. Humanity throws its hat in the ring on the side of the refugee Nangalani, live gray aliens like you'd see on any History Channel episode right now. We fight against a slave army that is known as the Baksti. They're a tyrannical, awful regime that has been crossing the Milky Way, taking over, killing people. Really bad stuff. Thanos-level destruction. This is a year after the first book has begun, so we pushed the Baksti back out of our space, but now they've returned even stronger than before, and they have taken over New Eden, a paradise planet. The ground game is on. So this is an excerpt from Sergeant First Class Zev Perez and his shadow platoon as they struggle to survive. Fort Metz burned. Fires roared across the base, leaving only the skeletal frames of buildings. Smoke billowed thick in the sky, blotting out the sun. The screams of the wounded and dying drowned beneath the constant staccato of machine guns and pulse of plasma bolts. Every few minutes, the ground would shake from a bombing run, followed by a thunderous explosion. Zev sprinted from cover, racing toward the shattered side of the post exchange. Up ahead, he saw the first half of his squad laying down fire. He listened as he ran. Pop, pop. The soldiers were low on ammo, conserving. He urged his legs to go faster, finally sliding into cover and taking up a defensive position. They inched across the raging city, street by street, corner by corner. Every sharp turn could mean an enemy weapons nest or a column of armor. Each bounding advance cost time and ammunition and lives. Zev counted his men, his heart stopping every time the number came up short. Shadow Platoon went to war with 40 soldiers. They were down to 12. Lieutenant Gabriel held up a hand and then tapped his ear. A Sills halt. Stop, look, listen, smell. Zev took the chance to catch his breath and check his weapon. Next, he dropped the magazine, gave it a shake. Light, maybe 20 rounds, and only 1 mag on his chest. Shit. The LT walked over. We need cover, Sergeant. Zev nodded to his platoon leader. School's up ahead, not much of value there, should be clear. The young officer wiped sweat from his eyes, smearing muck across his face. We're not dying here. It didn't come out as a rallying cry, but rather a clarification. We're going to die, just not here. The squad entered Paradise Point's middle school through a hole in the wall. The interior was surprisingly clean. Whatever bombing raid hit the city had spared this building. Rows of desks filled each room, covered in books and half-eaten snacks. It felt as though at any moment the bell would ring and kids would rush to their next class. Rotella, Gabriel asked. Next, try again. Private Cass keyed the radio. Any station this net, any station this net, there's Shadow 1 Romeo, come in. No answer. Lieutenant Gabriel snatched the radio in a bandaged hand. Blood soaked the gauze, leaking out onto the cuff of his shirt. He used his good hand to point his sidearm in every shadow in the corner. Anyone this is Shadow 1 actual over? He let out a shuddering sigh. Fuck. Zev walked closer to his platoon leader. The young man looked a decade older than this morning and about 30 pounds lighter. Might be interference, sir. Gabriel nodded. We need a more powerful antenna. You know any place? I don't know, you're the local. Gabriel chuckled. Yeah, but the officer's housing's a few miles down the road. Zev shakes his head. The local radio station isn't too far. If we hook up to their line, we can reach the talk and figure out where to regroup. Gabriel remained unconvinced. You think the talk's still there? Zev didn't answer. He took point, leading the squad through the school. The sound of battle carried on outside, growing closer. Zev paused at a door marked art supplies and peered around the corner. They had reached a T intersection with a long hallway when they heard them. Voices. Zev threw up a fist and dropped hard to his stomach. Plaster puffed into his face, choking him. He heard the sounds again. Someone barking orders up ahead. Not human. The first creature stepped around the corner, a bipedal lizard. Zev knew them from Kronos. His blood boiled, and then another familiar face appeared. It stood 7 feet tall, with 2 crab-like arms and 4 legs. The creature scanned the area with 3 eyes on the bottom half of its face. It carried a massive quad-barreled machine gun in its arms and swung it with ease. Zev knew this one. His arm still itched where its pincers took hold. More and more Boxty entered the passage, each stranger than the last. Zev counted 5 different species. They spoke in low voices, hissing and clicking. Zev eased his rifle to bear and slipped the fire selector from safe to semi. He willed his squad to do the same, smiling, when he heard the soft metal click, flicking over and over. He steadied his breath, lined up his sight picture, squeezed the trigger, and bam! First shot punched a hole through his target. Immediately the rest of Shadow opens up. Bullets filled the hallway from floor to ceiling. Every inch of space alive with hot lead and splintering plaster. The crab alien dove through a wall, spraying wood and debris everywhere, trying to get cover. It noticed its squad is getting torn to pieces. Zev's neck hair stood on end. Advance! Bright purple bolts tore through the air. Humans fell in sprays of gore, barely having time to scream. Zev gritted his teeth, a roar building in his throat. Charging around the corner, he emptied his rifle at the remaining creatures. 2 fell under a spray of bullets, and the 3rd caught the butt of Zev's rifle. And then only the crab creature remained. Zev dove into his enemy, his fist hammering the creature's midsection. The crab creature caught his left arm mid-swing, hurling him across the room. Zev rolled to his feet and pulled his combat knife from his vest. And for a moment the alien hesitated, and then drew its own dagger, a sickly black blade. The 2 soldiers circled each other, angling for an attack. Sproj Najak Jumohan, the Boxty hissed through a mouthful of needles. Zev inched forward, his left hand up in a defensive posture. The Boxty shot out its arm, the black blade cut in the air with a shrill whistle. The human sidestepped and countered, his knife scraped across the alien's armor. They unleashed a flurry of attacks. The creature struck out, then countered Zev's attack. Another swipe went high, and the platoon sergeant returned with a boot to the creature's midsection. A claw came out of nowhere, crashing across Zev's jaw. Stars exploded in front of his eyes, and for a moment he lost his opponent. The next thing he knew, the black knife came up and straight at his left eye. Zev spun, but too slow, and the edge dug a line across his face. Blinded by the blood, Zev reacted on instinct, charging into the attack and stabbing furiously. First came metal on metal as his knife hit harder, and then it bit in. He felt flesh give away and hot liquid pour onto his hand and arm. The Boxty soldier howled in pain, struggling to get away, but Zev refused to let go, screaming with each strike. White-hot motes of pain danced over him, and then in the next moment, he was cradling the dead alien. The platoon sergeant fell backward into the cracked wall, sliding down to a seated position. Each breath came ragged, wet. Lieutenant Gabriel appeared, grabbing his shoulders. Sergeant Perez, can you hear me? The officer's voice sounded muffled, far away. Sergeant! Zev felt hands squeeze his shoulders, his arms, running down his legs. His boots were unlaced and loosened. They're checking for injuries. Zev's head lolled to the side, seemingly of its own accord, and he looked down at his chest. Blood everywhere. Some his, some the crab's, and there, buried to the hilt in his chest, was the sickly black blade.